With regard to the elections in Nigeria, I went there as an observer. So it was not to say anything at all to the Nigerians about these elections, but just to observe. So we observed and then gave a report. And left it with the Nigerians, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. But of course, as you interact with the people there, you, never mind you're an observer, you do interact and discuss with them as to what is to be done, even about Nigeria. It was very, very important, it being Nigeria, the issues of peace are very important. At all costs to avoid all violence. That's one of the advice we would always give to our Nigerian colleagues. And also to deal with one another, not as enemies. Whoever wins is going to have to govern Nigeria. And whoever loses has got to be part of Nigeria to look at what this governor is doing. So this can't be enemies, to avoid a situation where you have that kind of tension. I don't know what I would say to the South Africans. Clearly, one of the things that is critically important, which has been legitimately raised, is the youth vote. This is a very serious matter because it's clear that among this large number of people who don't vote, a large number of them are the youth. That's a serious problem. If these young people who tomorrow are going to be my leaders, they are letting the country drift whichever way the country wants to go without making an input themselves as young people to say, we don't want this South Africa here, we want it there. It's a political problem. The youth organizations that come from the youth, my view is that they've become very weak. And therefore not making an impact on the youth. To say to the youth, the future of this country is your responsibility. And you can't delegate that responsibility to anybody. And one of your responsibilities in that context is to vote. But one of the responsibilities in that context is to have a view. If I come to say to the young people, please vote for me, they must ask me the question, why? If I say no because I'm handsome, they said no. We want something much more substantial in order to be able to vote for you. And for an organization like the ANC, to ask the question, ask the ANC, given what has happened over all of these years, what is it that justifies your request that I vote for you when there are also so many negatives? I'm saying that the youth need to be raising those questions and therefore participating in voting, because that's part of the process of determining the future of South Africa. I'm going to come back to this question just now. But the youth, I'm saying the youth, political youth organizations the African National Congress Youth League. It's been absent for so many years. And yet it was its task, part of its task, to engage the youth, to make sure that the youth are political actors in terms of determining the future of the country. But it has not been there to play that role. It's back now, and I do hope that it will focus on that issue. And that should help in terms of raising the numbers of young people who register to vote and vote. And that's one of the matters that is very important here in this country. There was a question raised about the construction mafia. And I think, obviously, this is one of those matters that relate to crime, because you can't have these people who hang around and be demanding these subcontracts. I think this one is a law enforcement matter, because I think this is just pure criminality. And hopefully it would be dealt with in that context. There's a question that was raised about AGOA and others. I didn't quite understand. Could the question be posed again? Just one minute. Incidentally, when people speak, they shouldn't speak to them like that. Because I can't understand what they are saying. So a little bit of distance between the mouth and the mic.
I think, Mr. President, as I was asking the question, I saw that you were in a deep conversation with Prof.
I was asking him what you were saying.
Okay. I submit, Mr. President. What I was asking, Mr. President, is that the relationship that the ANC or the government has with the Democrats, how will that impact us in terms of remaining in the AGOA? Or will we get kicked out because of the changing dynamics in the political sphere?
Okay. Well, fortunately, the meeting that was scheduled, I think for November, to discuss the AGOA thing with the Americans, will still take place here, though there was pressure that it must be moved elsewhere. Fortunately, it'll still take place here. And I mean, if I was in that meeting, this is what I would say to the Americans. That it was very, very correct indeed for the Americans to decide on AGOA in support of the African countries in terms of their development. That challenge hasn't changed. The need to access those US markets without duties in order to help our continent to develop. That challenge hasn't changed. Even for a country like South Africa, our access to the US markets is important for our economy, and therefore even the people who get employed as a result. That challenge remains. Now, it's obvious, since 1994, we have differed with the US governments on many things. For instance, one outstanding example is when the Americans wanted to go and attack Iraq in 2003. We said no. We objected to that, and we gave them all sorts of material to show them that there was no such thing as weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It didn't exist. We disagreed, they went to war. We disagree about many other things. Now, you can't base a relationship like the AGOA relationship, which has long-term implications. You can't base it on the fact that we must not quarrel about or differ about something. I mean, if there's a condition like that, no, we must not differ on anything, then let's get out of AGOA. I have a suspicion that there is sufficient maturity among the US government not to insist that there should be any change on this AGOA matter. If I'm wrong, you raise it with me next time. But my suspicion is that they understand that continuing imperative to impact positively on these major challenges of development, job creation, and so on. And that they can't walk away from that responsibility as it relates to South Africa simply because we're differing about Ukraine.